Welcome to Taboo Chronicles. I'm Roberta, the Tool Lady, and I will be setting alone tonight with my handsome guest here. He's going to be joining me again, uh, and he's the fun guy. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Mr. Fun Guy.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm One Fun Guy Podcast. I have my own podcast where I do a conversation style. I've been doing a weekly one, but as of the new year, I'm going every other week to try to get more quality of my guests than quantity of my guests. But Roberta's like family now, so we've been on each other's show a few times, and she's always welcome on mine, and I'm glad to be back. So.
Ooh. Yeah. And also, I have a co-host, Jackie, the wellness advocate, who will be joining me again. She'll be returning back. She had to take a mental health break, and we do advocate for that because this is Taboo Chronicles. So we advocate for breaks. We're big on that.
Sure.
Okay. And I'm just going to say a big thank you to all of you all that have been actually being consistent, putting up with us, wherever you are listening to us, watching our show or listening, to the show, to those who contribute to the show. I really appreciate it. I appreciate One Fun Guy because guess what? What he did, he followed up with me as soon as I actually took a vacation as well. And once I came off my vacation, I looked at my phone. He was like, "Are you ready?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I am ready." So what we're going to talk about, because we all need breaks.
We do.
That's it. Now we're going to talk about time management. I didn't know you had changed your show. So tonight we're going to talk about time management and networking, which, as he just mentioned, and part of being a podcaster, I've gotten to know a lot of extremely interesting people. And how about you, One Fun Guy?
Yeah, so we'll start with the time management thing.
Okay.
I've made probably more mistakes podcasting than anybody that could do it, right? I didn't know what to do. I jumped into this universe without a game plan, and I wish I would have had a more strategic approach to it than just kind of going, full force into podcasting. I wish I had a calendar at first. I wish I had a list of people that I wanted to have on. I wish, I made a bunch of mistakes. So going into 2025, I said, all right, how can I fix these mistakes? Like, what can I do? So I said, if I can go every other week and still put out a good show, that my audience would be okay with that, because it's hard to logistically get people on your show once a week. And I found myself where somebody would say, hey, listen, I'm not going to be able to make it on Saturday, or I'm not going to be able to make it on Sunday. Well, when your audience is expecting a show, I would just go live, right, by myself. And I would tell everybody what's going on with, my setup and how I'm doing it. And so now I found that going every other week gives me more opportunity to find people, to work out a legitimate schedule. And then that way I don't feel so pressured and rushed into getting everybody in. Now, this has been my idea. But since I started doing that, I found more and more people that want to be on my show. So it almost is like a weekly thing now, right? Like, so as much as I wanted to have a calendar and a schedule and say, these are my days and these are my times, I flex a lot to help guests be on my show, whether they're in Europe and they want to do it at 1:30 or 2 in the morning, so it's their 10 a.m. I'll stay up at night and do it. Or if they want to do a Sunday at 3 o'clock because it's their 9 o'clock, I'm becoming more and more flexible. But the time management thing has really been what I've tried to focus on in 2025. Because in 2024, when I started doing it, I was all over the place. I was like Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Friday nights. And my audience would say, I didn't know you were live. Like, I didn't know. And I was like, I didn't know I was going to be live. The person said they wanted to do it. I said, meet me in 10 minutes and we would go live. So I've really started a strategy now and a game plan, and it's worked out well.
Right, right. Now, I agree with you. I have to have some type of balance, and actually, usually, I send you a little deal of what we're gonna do this time because I knew basically I'm coming back fresh from my vacation as well, and kind of resetting. Um, I also know that it's easy to get burnt out. Podcasting and kind of getting into your audience, and then also offering them something and delivering that is a big
Mm-hmm.
deal to me and to you. You know,
Sure.
that's what you're saying. It's a big deal. You want to be genuine, and you want to give a good a good show.
Yes.
And it is. Consistency is pretty important.
Yeah.
It's very important.
And
And
it's very unique because when I started, I had the approach of I'm doing this for me. So if I only have one person watching me, it doesn't matter. I'm doing it because I want to make myself happy and I want to talk to people and find interesting people. But in about 3 months of me doing that, I realized that, well, I'm doing this for an audience, right? I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for everybody watching me. So I wanted to make it more interactive. And that's when I started, going into the aspect of, our next subject, which is networking, right?
Mhm.
Because I wanted to find people that had a compelling story or had something positive to say and put it into the universe. I just didn't want to find a certain demographic of people and just stay with that. And I started taking the Sean Ryan and Joe Rogan approach, where I could talk to a musician, I could talk to a comedian, I could talk to an author, I could talk to a poet, I could talk to an athlete. And
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to mix it up. I just didn't want to stick with the basics of I'm going to have this category and this is my topic all the time. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because it works for a lot of people. I've noticed a lot of people that do religious ones that talk about the Bible and they talk about spirituality and stuff like that. That is their focus, and all their guests are in that world. So I
Mhm.
could understand them doing that, but I wanted to take the approach of I wanted to talk to everybody. I didn't want an umbrella and a typecast of certain people that I wanted to talk to. I wanted to talk to the world. And that's kind of how I set up my podcast. And then going in again with the time management thing, it was very hard to do that because you meet people all over the social media platforms. Well, I just assumed everybody was in the United States. And I was like, well, Eastern time, Central time, Mountain time, Pacific time, it would work. Well,
Yeah.
then I started meeting people overseas, right? In Europe, in Denmark, in Sweden, in the Indochina. Well, they're 8, 9, 10 hour difference. So it's logistics are hard. So time management was very important to me and how I was going to operate and how I was going to do that. And that's why I kind of stuck to the weekends because my time allowed me to stay up late at night if I needed to, or wake up super early in the morning because having, a day job doesn't allow you to do that. And
Mhm.
and kudos to all the podcasters that do this for a living because it is so much easier to say come on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock versus a Monday night at 8 or 9 or a Saturday morning at 5:30 or 6 in the morning to accommodate somebody. But I'm willing and I'm flexible, and that's always been my approach, and it's worked. So
Okay. Yeah. And now on this show we did decide that we were gonna do a demographics, and basically it was just to reach people and talk about topics that nobody likes to talk about, things that are uncomfortable, right? But on my show, Put It All on Red, which is tomorrow at 8, I got the same idea as you do, that I like to talk to everybody because everybody has a story and you never
mhm.
know what part of that story somebody else out here needs to hear. And sometimes you get stuck in your own story that you don't even see, an out another outlet. So sometimes it's good to see, well, not sometimes, it's good to see somebody else. And
Mm.
so that's why I decided to branch off and do my own show as well. And because people do ask you, what is your demographics? Now, I do have a lot of women that I figured out that are navigating and listening to me. And so I I do a lot of posts for women, uh, women supporting women. And by the
Sure.
way, shout out, because it is Women Month. So shout out to all you ladies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? I wanted my podcast to be more uplifting and positive. So yes, there are certain topics that are very hard to talk about, right?
Mhm.
The mental health issue is very difficult because some people deep dive into that, and I advocate for mental health more than anybody. So I am very willing to talk about that. But at the end of the day, I wanted to always bring a positive message and a happy outcome to my podcast. So I focused more on my guest and what they had going on in their particular circumstance or situation than me. Because at the end of the day, it's about them being on my show and being excited about what they want to talk about. I don't want to force somebody to talk about something that I want to talk about. So
Yeah.
I opened kind of door to a lot of different walks of life that I normally wouldn't have had a conversation with on a daily basis. So, I've had a couple people that have talked about, their backgrounds and again, spirituality and stuff like that, where I'm a very open book when it comes to stuff like that. And I'm kind of opinionated, but I'm also open-minded enough to respect somebody and what they're trying to do. And that's kind of what I did. However, I did say from the very beginning, though, that the two topics I wasn't going to focus on were going to be religion and politics, because I didn't want to, start arguments or anything like that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
again, I'm not opposed to talking about it if the subject comes up, which it has, but I'm not going to change anybody's opinion, and they're not going to change mine in 30 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour.
Right.
So I'd rather not talk about that. I'd rather talk about the positive things that other people have going on in their lives. Now, when you go live on other social media platforms, i.e. TikTok and Instagram, right? There's
Mhm.
people that poke the bear, right? They want to ask. And if you go down that rabbit hole, it can kind of turn people that would have normally thought differently about you off. And then it could also bring in the people that are like, well, what's this guy, like, I didn't think he had this idea of this thing. So it's kind of that double-edged sword. So those are the two topics I shy away from, or at
Right.
least I try to. That's kind of
Right.
it's
Well,
always been my thing.
yeah. I always advise is it's money, politics, and religion. And and my thing is, I just, to be honest, I don't trust anybody. I
Mm,
just have major trust issues. That's my
sure.
taboo issue. That's my toxic trait. So saying that, I don't take anybody for face value. Or I do take people for face value. I think
Sure.
it's the opposite. So it's what you show me is what I go with.
Right.
I could read or see every day, and actually I stay away from the media because I don't even want to hear it anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm
Sure.
old. I'm just like that. And so so that, and then money, money can make people uncomfortable. A lot of people are not,
Yeah.
are not comfortable with talking about money, and so it's
Right.
understandable. And then we all have, those that we know of. If you got too much money, they might want some of the money too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm all about advocating for making money, right? Like I
Okay.
never shoot anybody down if they have an
Yeah.
idea or they want to start a new business or start a new, like I'm all for it. And my attitude has always been, if you want, if you're passionate about something, even if it's the most obscure thing,
Yeah.
if you only live once, right? So
Yeah.
try it, because the
Right.
worst that could happen is you made a bad investment and you walk away from it and you say, I won't do that again. But if you never did it and you never put the money into it, you don't know what the outcome could have been. It could have been super successful. It could have caught on. So I'm always in the mindset of, if somebody has an idea and they
Mhm.
want to put it into the universe, do it, right? Whether if it's whatever it is, right? It could be the most obscure thing or the most outlandish thing, but you have to try. So I've always been a pro advocate of money. So I kind of have a different approach to it, just because like I would never ask how much money do you make, right? Like that's a very like, so I wouldn't do that. But if somebody had an idea of how they thought they could make money or how they can invest in themselves and then turn that into a reality, I am all for that. So I don't particularly avoid the money topic, but if it goes into conjunction with something positive, then I'm all for it, right? So, you know, starting a business, starting a shop, starting, you know, an adventure, starting a thing, I'm all for that. Because if you don't take the chance, you'll never know what the reward is going to be. So I have a different approach about money, but I don't, you're right, I don't ask specifics, right? Like I would never ask anybody, you know, how much they have or how much they made from this or how much they did. That's their own idea. But I love the aspect of an entrepreneur telling how they would have gotten their money. So I love that aspect about it. So if somebody is successful, I love picking their brain about.
But you know, now we are, now the thing is, the thing is that we are also frontier people as well. We're frontier people in this podcast deal. So honestly, we're entrepreneurs. And honestly, we're trying something different, right? We're getting out of, I know for me, I'm getting out of a comfort zone. You know, I was telling someone earlier, I'm usually the person that watches everybody. So this takes a whole lot for me and a whole lot of a mission from somewhere inside for me to even want to come on and even, you know, have a conversation with, like he said, the world.
Yeah. And it's very unique because in my perspective of doing this podcast, I've learned a lot, like, and I've grown a lot from it, but I feel comfortable enough in my background to where I am comfortable talking about the subjects that I'm with. But if somebody says something and I have no idea about it, my attitude is, well, then tell me. You've captivated me now. Tell me what it is about this particular thing that you like so much, because I might never have heard of it, right? So, you know, I'm pretty social media savvy. I have a pretty good background of a lot of different topics, which helps me out podcasting. But I also like the art of conversation, which I think is kind of gone to the wayside now, which is, again, going back to where networking is because a lot of people just don't like to talk to people anymore. We're in a tech world, and emails and text messages seem to be the king of, you know, socializing, where I would much rather pick up the phone or do this, right? Just talk to somebody, right? Podcasting is bringing back that conversation, right? And we grew up in an era where we watched talk shows, right? And people watched TV and they got different perspectives from different walks of life. Those were basically the precursors to podcasting, right? Like having a sit down interview and talking to somebody, you know, watching the 60 Minutes and watching, you know, the news at night, where news reporters would go out and say, oh, well, what did you see? And they'd stick the microphone in somebody's face and they'd be like, oh, well, I saw this, right? That's all gone now. So this is, I feel like podcasting is the last art of conversation. Like this is the last of people talking to people in a one-to-one comfortable setting where there is no judgment and there is no placation. We just pick a subject and we talk about it. But I just find, like, I think that if podcasting ever goes away, I think the art of conversation is over, because nobody's going to talk to anybody anymore. I've seen people at the dinner table where they text back and forth and they're literally sitting 3 feet from each other. They don't say a word to each other. They just message. And it's like, they don't know how to communicate. And I think that this is the last generation of people with podcasting where the conversation still matters and it's still important and it's still the basis of doing it, because you have to talk to people. So I'm kind of in that mode where I think that, you know, that this is going to be, you know, the next step in broadcasting and journalism is going to be vlogging and podcasting, just because the regular TV channels now are pretty much obsolete. Nobody has cable anymore. Everybody's streaming everything. And when you stream, what do you watch? You watch movies and TV shows. You don't watch the news. You don't watch, you know, the only way people enjoy conversation is through podcasting now. So I really feel that this is the last of the, you know, conversation style media that we have.
Right. It is. It is. I've noticed that as well. A lot of people say, well, even in my day job, and when I speak to people or have a conversation, they'll say, well, I don't have time. I don't have time.
Yeah.
So just not having time for a conversation. And a lot of people have been programmed. I don't have time for, a lot of conversation. I don't want a
Yeah.
conversation.
and
Oh,
and
you're right.
I grew up in an Italian household, right? So like every Sunday was dinner to at the you didn't miss family dinner on Sundays. You had to
Right.
be there, right? Unless it was some crazy outlandish region where you had somewhere to be other than at that dinner table at 5:30 on Sunday. But we would sit at the table and talk for hours, right? It would be 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30 by the time you broke. But that's what we did, and that was what we, Sunday dinner was sacred. And now I just see families, everybody's busy, and like you said, I don't have time to do that, and I don't have, that's all gone now. And like, having, kids now, I see my friends and their kids, and they are all about the iPads and the phones and the tablets and the, video games. They're not out playing anymore. They're not talking with other kids. They're not. And so I feel almost bad for them in a way,
Hmm.
because they didn't grow up in the era we grew up in, where you went out and played and you met people and you had stuff, right? And like, and now it's kind of really kind of just a almost, I want to say a forgotten art now, right? Sitting down and talking to somebody. Some people get so anxious and so, afraid of talking that they just get up and walk away. And
Hmm.
it's tough, right? Because they don't really teach it in school anymore. They don't teach conversation. They're all about taking breaks and, having their video game time and their tablet time and their
Hmm.
TV time. And we never had that. So
Yeah.
uh,
We didn't. Um, I was let me look up. I was looking up the forms of development because I used to teach it. And so we have cognitive, we have physical, we have emotional. So it's cognitive development. That's the development of our thoughts, and being able to do mathematics, reading, writing.
mhm.
Then you have physical, which we're lacking some because children don't go outside and play anymore. People don't go out and enjoy the day. Even the adults don't. They barely. I go to the park, like the weather is changing, and you'll
Mhm.
see certain people out walking, but not a lot of people are not out
Yeah.
here walking. Emotional development, which also has something to do with what you're saying, as far as if you can't articulate your thoughts, like you said,
Right.
and having some anxiety because you're having a conversation, having some anxiety, like I don't know what to say or return that comment. How do I even respond back to this conversation? And then a lot of people don't even know how to greet a person in today's
Mhm.
world.
Yeah.
They really don't. Stuff that was really simple, and I find it interesting that you paired it with a dinner table, because I've once talked about that as well. We were also where that was where we had to eat at, and that was something like a cornerstone that had to be there in our homes.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, and going off in as my own family, I can remember my grandmother saying, "Make sure you have a table." Because you have to have a place to meet.
Mhm.
No one has that anymore, and it is getting pretty much of
Yeah.
a place where people don't have conversations for each other,
Right.
and there's more isolation.
Yeah. And that's why I embrace like the social aspects of living, right? Concerts, going out to events, sporting events, right? Even church, right? Church, I know we didn't, depend, it doesn't matter what you believe in, but going to a service of some sort introduces you into the community where people talk to each other and they interact with each other socially. So it doesn't matter what religion you're a part of or what God you worship or what you believe, but just going to a building and being with other people of that like-minded nature opens up the art of meeting people and talking to people. Concerts, like I said, sporting events, where you're in a large group of people, you have to interact socially. And I think that those are still the things that kind of give us hope that, this, norm of what we used to have when we were growing up where you didn't watch TV. It was a privilege to watch TV. You were outside. You were interacting with people. You were doing things. You were in groups. You did Boy Scouts. You did Girl Scouts. You did art. You did, all these other after school programs.
Music.
Where now,
you did
right,
music. There's no
correct.
music.
Yeah, music is right,
Yeah.
is awesome, right? Doing band and doing all this other stuff. Where now these children are just isolated, and when you ask them a question, they don't know how to give a response, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you ask a 10-year-old, how was your day, or what did you do in school, they should be able to articulate what they did. A lot of them are like, well, we didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do anything all day, right? So for 7.5 hours, you didn't do anything, but they don't want to talk. They want to run to the computer. They want to run to the video games. They want to. So again, my dad and my mom, every day I got home from school, that was the first thing. What did you do in school today? What did you learn today? They were always interacting with me to get me to talk, so when somebody else asked me a question, how was school? Oh, school's great. This is what we're learning now. This is what we're doing in class. Correct. I had no problem telling everybody, kids today now, when you go and you ask them how's school, they're like, it's good.
Yeah, everything. That's
awesome,
what it is. But and then going back, we had a show about it. Suicide in children, actually 8 to 12 years old, is very high here in America.
Yeah,
because of that, because of their lack of communication and able to network.
And there's a
lot
friends. That culminates into that, right? Like that's a really tough topic to talk about, because you look at what social norms are versus what they were, right? You look at the idea of groups and people, versus one-on-one now, right? Bullying is a big thing, right? Where, a lot of kids now, they don't have any coping skills, right? They have no outlet. They have nowhere to go. So all the stress is just adding up on them, where I think it's a generational thing, because you went out and did things when you were a kid, right? You were able to run off that energy. You were able to do all that stuff. And now, because of the way that parents are just afraid of putting their kid in society, it becomes one of those things where it's like the walls close in, and they're just not allowed to be kids anymore, which is, like I said, it's a whole different topic of that. But
I mean, it all ties
back to this, though, is being able to talk to people, right? If you can't put out what you're feeling and what's going on, then there's nobody that's going to know that you're dealing with these things. You have to talk about it and put it out there. And I think that's where kids today, unfortunately, just kind of lack that ability to do that. They just don't know how.
Right. And knowing that you're not alone, even if you're an adult, you're not alone.
Sure. Yeah.
People are out here. There's podcasts, there's vloggers, there's people that have different stations and different specialties or whatever. So you're not alone.
No. And actually, surprisingly enough, a couple months ago, I had a girl named Ashley. She goes by Paranoia Thread on social media. She's a 988 operator, and we talked about getting that text message or getting that phone call at midnight when somebody on the other line is thinking about not being on this earth anymore, and walking them through that. And she was very powerful in her message, and how she was able to get people to understand their self-worth, and that tomorrow's a new day, and that, the earth needs you and the world needs you. Because a lot of times when you're on that 988 hotline, that gun is in your mouth, right? That noose is around your neck. Those pills are in your hand. That bottle of alcohol is right there. And they are seconds away from eating these pills and drinking the booze, or pulling that trigger, or moving that chair and hanging themselves, right? And you're the last person that they come in contact with before they go to that next, and you have to talk them out of it. She was very moving and very powerful. That was a very eye-opening experience to how, she does her job in a very high stress, but very, under the radar, right? It's not a thing that they put out very often, right? And now a lot of people are advocating for 988 because it's the lifeline of the very last, So but it was very moving. It was very, very powerful to have her, kind of explain how she's trained to basically get somebody per se off that ledge.
Yeah, it's admirable.
Yeah, very. It was one of my favorite podcasts that I did so far.
Right, right. Now, when we started, that's what we said. We said we want to save lives. We're still trying to save lives.
That's
You're
it.
not alone out there.
Give some hope.
Right, get some help. You hear you have a wonderful podcasts available. You have One Fun Guy podcast. He has a variety. He has paranormal, the paranormal.
That was my first one. I talked about ghosts and I didn't even know. Obviously, you could tell I'm a huge horror movie fan, right? So, like, I'm not unfamiliar with the paranormal world, right? Like, I love horror movies, The Exorcist and the Amityville and The Conjuring, right? But I didn't know like how much stuff actually went into these ghost hunters, right? And what they have, these $1,000 equipment and all this stuff that they have. Like, it blew my mind. I was totally taken back by that. It was very interesting, and obviously I love a good horror movie. So I wasn't, I'm not kind of ignorant when it comes to that. Like, I know like what they do, but I just didn't realize the actual ghost hunters that go out there and look for these spirits and try to capture them. It's pretty amazing what they do.
So you got podcasts like that. You got our podcast. You got my podcast. Put it all on red. So you're not alone, and we are out here to connect. If you ever want to be a guest on one of our shows, hit us up. We're on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that at the end of every show, that if you know somebody, it's kind of like the Jerry Springer, like, take care of yourselves and each other. So I always put that out there. I'm like, hey, if you know anybody that wants to be a guest or you want to be a guest on my show, just drop me a link. I put my email in the description, and you can reach out to me or send me a message, and I'm always available. So, and then obviously with this here, I'll post it all on my social media, and then anybody who follows me that might not have heard of you, well, now they know about Roberta the Tool Lady. So I'll blast it out all over my socials.
Okay, and we're absolutely here for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really appreciate you connecting with me. I appreciate you joining me tonight.
Anytime.
We had a good time. I hope our listeners had a good time. I had a good time. I think it warmed up pretty well. Tonight's going to be a short show, so we're going to be ending it right now. But I just want to say thank you for sticking in with me. And my co-host, Jackie, she will be returning back in 2 weeks. So I'm excited about that. And also thank you to our guests, our handsome guests.
Thank you.
One Fun Guy. And hit us up. Go to YouTube, like and join our page. Like I said, frontiers on this. We're trying to, we're doing something new. So we're being adventurous, actually. So like and follow us, and
absolutely.
We'll talk to you later. Love and peace. Mwah.